Laura's phone buzzed with her sister Melissa's third text this week, acting like everything was normal despite cutting Laura from her wedding entirely 2 months ago. The invitation had arrived, addressed only to their parents, a crushing blow that left Laura sobbing on her kitchen floor while social media filled with photos of strangers standing where she should have been as maid of honor. What devastating secret could make a bride erase her only sister from the most important day of her life, then text weekly as if nothing happened? If this story touched your heart, please comment below with your experiences. Like and subscribe for more emotional family dramas that cut straight to the core. Laura stared at the message, thumb hovering over the screen. Hey, thinking of trying that new cafe downtown this weekend? Want to join? Miss you. The casual words burned like acid against the raw wound of betrayal. How could Melissa possibly think they could just get coffee like nothing had happened, like Laura hadn't been completely erased from the most important day of her sister's life? Laura closed her eyes, letting memories wash over her like a bittersweet tide. She and Melissa had once been inseparable, their childhood rooms connected by a shared bathroom they'd decorated with matching seashell-patterned curtains. When we grow up, we'll live next door to each other, 10-year-old Melissa had declared, legs dangling from Laura's bed as they flipped through bridal magazines, stolen from their mother's collection. And I'll be your maid of honor, and you'll be mine, Laura had replied, cutting out pictures of wedding dresses to paste into their shared scrapbook. It wasn't just childish fantasy. Through high school and college, they'd maintained that pact, updating their wedding vision boards from magazine cutouts to Pinterest boards. Even when Laura moved to Chicago for work, and Melissa stayed in their hometown, they'd call weekly, sharing dreams and disappointments alike. The summer Laura turned to 25, they'd been bridesmaids together at their cousin's wedding, standing side by side in matching periwinkle dresses. They'd clinked champagne glasses and renewed their promise. Nothing will ever come between us, Melissa had said, tipsy and sincere. When I get married, you'll be right there beside me, first row, to see you walk down the aisle, Laura had teased. Melissa had smacked her arm playfully. You know what I mean, you'll be holding my bouquet, fixing my train, the whole sister maid of honor package. Laura had hugged her tight. And you'll do the same for me. That night, they'd stayed up until dawn in their shared hotel room, Melissa sketching out her dream wedding, Laura making notes in her phone. They'd planned it all, the venue, garden ceremony, reception in a converted barn, the colors, sage green and dusty rose, the cake vanilla with raspberry filling, 3 tiers closing parenthesis, dot. Laura had saved those notes, updating them yearly as Melissa's tastes evolved. But the one constant was Laura's role, maid of honor, speech giver, emotional support. Sister. When Melissa started dating Jake 3 years ago, the wedding talk intensified. I think he might be the one, Melissa had whispered during a Christmas visit. Eyes bright with excitement, Laura remembered nodding enthusiastically, ignoring the strange coolness she'd felt the one time she'd met Jake. His handshake had been too firm, his smile not quite reaching his eyes when Melissa introduced them. But she'd pushed those feelings aside, wanting only her sister's happiness. Then I better start saving for the most epic bachelorette party ever, Laura had replied, hugging her sister close. Now, staring at the text message on her phone, those memories felt like artifacts from another life. What had happened to those 2 girls and their unbreakable bond? What could possibly have changed so dramatically that Laura had gone from presumptive maid of honor to uninvited in the span of 6 months? The engagement announcement had come via a group text to the family. Laura had been in a budget meeting when her phone lit up with the message and a photo of Melissa's hand sporting a princess-cut diamond ring. Jake had proposed during their weekend getaway to Lake Michigan, surprising her with a Sunset Beach proposal. Laura had immediately excused herself from the meeting, stepping into the hallway to call her sister. Oh my God, congratulations, she'd squealed, genuine joy bubbling through her. Despite her reservations about Jake, Melissa's happiness was what mattered. I can't believe it finally happened, Melissa had gushed, her voice breathless with excitement. You should see the ring in person, it's gorgeous. Send me more pictures. When are you thinking for the wedding? Have you thought about venues yet? Oh my God, we need to start looking at dresses. Laura had fired off questions rapidly, already mentally clearing her schedule for dress, shopping trips, and venue tours. There had been a slight pause before Melissa responded. Well, we're thinking next spring, but nothing's set in stone yet. Jake thinks we should keep it intimate. Intimate is perfect, Laura had assured her. Remember the Mason wedding we went to? That small garden ceremony was stunning. Yeah, something like that, Melissa had said, but her tone had shifted slightly. Listen, I should go. Jake's parents are calling to congratulate us. Of course, call me this weekend. We can start putting together some ideas. Pull up those old Pinterest boards, Laura had suggested. Sure, yeah, I'll call you. The line had gone dead abruptly. That weekend, Laura had waited for a call that never came. She'd texted Melissa on Sunday evening, casually asking how the weekend had gone, and received a brief reply hours later, busy with engagement stuff. Talk soon. Soon. At first Laura hadn't thought much of it. Getting engaged was overwhelming Melissa, probably needed time to process everything, but then days stretched into weeks, and their usual regular communication dwindled to sporadic, vague texts. Laura had tried again, sending Melissa links to wedding websites and venues that matched their long-discussed plans. These are gorgeous, but Jake and I are exploring some different options now, had been the non-committal reply. The first real warning sign had come a month after the engagement, when Laura had called her parents for their weekly check-in. How's all the wedding planning going? She'd asked casually. Her mother had hesitated. Oh well, they've booked the country club for next April. Melissa didn't tell you. Laura had felt a cold knot form in her stomach. No, she didn't mention that. I'm sure she's just been busy. Her mother had said quickly. You know how it is with wedding planning, so many details. That night, Laura had scrolled through Melissa's Instagram, finding photos of her sister at a bridal boutique, surrounded by women Laura barely recognized. First dress shopping trip with my bridal crew. The caption had read. Laura had stared at her phone, bewildered. Where was her invitation? Why wasn't she part of the bridal crew? They had literally been planning this moment since childhood. Something was very wrong. The distance between them grew wider as the wedding planning progressed. Laura's texts became increasingly desperate while Melissa's responses grew more delayed and vague every time she asked about specific wedding details or her role in the ceremony. Melissa would dodge with, "Nothing's finalized yet," or "We're still figuring things out." But social media told a different story. Laura found herself obsessively checking Melissa's accounts, watching her sister's life unfold through carefully filtered squares. There she was at a cake tasting with her future mother-in-law, was at a second dress fitting with a girl Laura vaguely recognized from Melissa's college days. There she was holding color swatches with Jake's sister, the caption reading, "So grateful for my amazing future sister-in-law." #bridal party goes. Each post was a fresh wound. Laura scrutinized them for clues, wondering if she'd done something wrong, if there had been some terrible misunderstanding. She called her parents more frequently, fishing for information. "Has Melissa mentioned anything about the wedding party to you?" she asked her mother during one such call, trying to sound casual. "Oh, you know how private she and Jake are being about the details," her mother replied, her voice strangely high. "I think they want some things to be a surprise." "Mom, I'm her sister. I should be her maid of honor. That's not usually a surprise." Laura couldn't keep the hurt from her voice. A long silence followed. "Honey, I think you should talk to Melissa directly about this. I've tried. She won't give me a straight answer." "Well, double quotes," her mother sighed. "These things can get complicated. Jake has strong opinions about the wedding, and Melissa wants to make him happy." "What does that mean?" Laura pressed. "I've said too much already. Just, try to be understanding. Marriage means compromise." The conversation left Laura with more questions than answers. She tried calling Melissa directly that evening, but the call went straight to voicemail. She left a message that she hoped struck the right balance between concerned and casual. "Hey Mel, just checking in. I feel like we haven't really talked about the wedding much, and I want to make sure I'm helping however I can. Call me back when you get a chance." 3 days later, she received a text. "Sorry, been crazy busy with work and wedding stuff. Everything's under control. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it." As if Laura was some distant acquaintance offering to stuff envelopes, not the sister who had been promised the maid of honor role since childhood. That night, she scrolled back through years of text messages, finding the ones where they'd explicitly discussed their future weddings. She screenshot them and almost sent them to Melissa before thinking better of it. Confrontation via text message seemed like a recipe for disaster. Instead, she called their father, hoping for a straight answer. "Dad, is everything okay with Melissa?" "With us, she's acting like I'm barely part of her life, let alone her wedding." Her father cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Pumpkin, You know I don't get involved in sister things. This isn't sister things, Dad. Something's seriously wrong. Just give her space, he said finally. This wedding planning has everyone stressed out. Laura hung up, more confused and hurt than ever. The next day, her Instagram feed showed Melissa at a bridesmaid's dress fitting. 6 women Laura barely recognized stood in various shades of sage green, champagne glasses in hand. The caption read, "Final fittings with my bride tribe, 75 days to go." Laura's name hadn't even been mentioned. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday, a thick cream envelope with calligraphy addressing it to Mr. and Mrs. James Wilson, Laura's parents. Just her parents. Laura had been collecting her parents' mail while they were on a weekend getaway, and her heart had leaped when she saw the elegant envelope. Finally, confirmation of her role in the wedding. Maybe Melissa had been planning a surprise all along, perhaps asking Laura to be her maid of honor in some special way. She'd turned the envelope over in her hands, admiring the wax seal with M&J pressed into it. That's when she noticed it. The envelope was addressed only to her parents. Her name was nowhere to be found. There must be a separate one for me, she'd whispered to herself, rifling through the rest of the mail. Nothing. She'd checked the mailbox again, empty. With trembling hands, she'd taken a photo of the envelope and texted it to Melissa. Just checking, is my invitation coming separately? 3 agonizing hours later, the reply came. Mom and Dad can bring you as their +1 if you want to come. If she wanted to come. As if her attendance at her only sister's wedding was optional, an afterthought, as if she were a distant cousin or workplace acquaintance. Laura had collapsed onto her parents' couch, the envelope clutched to her chest as sobs racked her body. This couldn't be happening. There had to be some explanation, some misunderstanding. She'd called Melissa immediately, but the call went to voicemail. She tried again and again. On the 4th attempt, she'd left a tearful message. Melissa, it's me. I just saw the invitation, and I'm really confused. Please call me back. I don't understand what's happening. When her parents returned that evening, they'd found Laura still on the couch, eyes red-rimmed, the unopened invitation on the coffee table. Honey, what's wrong? Her mother had asked, rushing to her side. Laura had pointed wordlessly at the envelope. Her father had picked it up, frowning slightly. Melissa's wedding invitation. What about it? Look at who it's addressed to. Laura had managed. Her parents exchanged a glance that spoke volumes. They knew. They'd been expecting this. Why am I not invited to my own sister's wedding? Laura had demanded, her voice breaking. Why is my name not on that envelope? Why is she telling me I can come as your +1? Her mother had sat beside her, placing a hesitant hand on her knee. Sweetheart, we thought Melissa had talked to you about this. About what? Laura had cried. About cutting me out of the most important day of her life. About breaking the promise we've had since we were kids. The wedding party. It's just going to be Jake's family, her father had explained awkwardly. His sister is the maid of honor. His brothers are groomsmen. Melissa said they wanted to keep things balanced. Balanced, Laura had repeated incredulously. I'm her sister, her only sister. We know, honey, her mother had soothed. We don't understand it either, but it's their wedding, Melissa said. She said she wanted to keep things simple. Simple, balanced, small. None of these explanations made any sense. What had happened to the wedding they'd planned together all those years? What had happened to her sister? Have you tried talking to her? Her father had asked. She won't answer my calls. Laura had wiped angrily at her tears. She texted that I could come as your +1, like I'm some random friend you might want to bring. Her parents had exchanged another of those knowing looks that made Laura's stomach twist. What aren't you telling me? She'd demanded. In the end, Laura didn't attend the wedding. Her parents went, of course, dressed in their finest. Her mother in a navy dress she'd bought specifically for the occasion. Her father in a new suit. Didn't post any photos. They barely mentioned it when they returned. When Laura asked how it was, her mother had simply said, beautiful, and quickly changed the subject. But social media told the full story. Though Laura had promised herself she wouldn't look, her resolve crumbled the morning of the wedding. Sitting alone in her apartment, still in pajamas at noon, she'd opened Instagram and fallen down a rabbit hole of wedding. #hashtags. Melissa and Jake say Edo. #Wilson wedding bells. #finally. With the photos had started appearing by early afternoon. Melissa getting ready with Jake's sister Amber and 4 other women Laura recognized from previous posts. The bride tribe in matching sage green silk robes, champagne flutes raised in a toast, Melissa's hair being styled in an intricate updo, adorned with baby's breath. Exactly the style she and Laura had once decided on together. Laura had taken screenshots of each photo, studying them as if they might contain clues to explain her exclusion. Her finger had hovered over the like button several times, but she couldn't bring herself to press it. Instead, she'd poured herself a large glass of wine and kept scrolling. By evening, the ceremony photos appeared. Melissa looking radiant in a lace mermaid gown, not the aligned style they'd always discussed. Jake beaming beside her at the altar. Their parents seated in the front row, her mother dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. Amber standing proudly as maid of honor, holding Melissa's bouquet during the ring exchange. The photo that finally broke Laura completely was one captioned, "Sisters aren't always blood. So blessed to have gained the best sister-in-law anyone could ask for. Love you, Amber." It showed Melissa and Amber embracing, foreheads touching, matching tears of joy on their cheeks. Laura had hurled her phone across the room, where it hit the wall with a crack before falling to the carpet. She'd curled into a ball on her couch, sobs shaking her body until she had no tears left. The next morning, hungover and hollow-eyed, she'd retrieved her phone to find the screen cracked but still functioning. Dozens of new wedding photos had appeared overnight. The reception, the first dance, the cake cutting, the bouquet toss. Laura had done the only thing she could think of. To protect herself, she'd blocked Melissa on all social media platforms, deleted her number from her phone, and shut off all notifications. Then she'd called in sick to work and spent the day in bed, alternating between restless sleep and staring blankly at her ceiling. For 2 weeks, she'd existed in a fog. She'd gone through the motions at work, avoided her parents' calls, and stopped checking social media entirely. The silence from Melissa had been deafening. It wasn't. Exactly 16 days after the wedding, a text had appeared from an unknown number. "Hey sis, back from the honeymoon. Want to grab coffee this weekend?" Laura had stared at the message in disbelief. There was no acknowledgement of what had happened. No explanation. No apologies, just a casual invitation, as if they'd spoken yesterday. As if Laura hadn't been cut out of the most important day of Melissa's life. She hadn't replied. 3 days later, another text. "Hey, did you get my last message? Would love to catch up soon." Laura had blocked that number too, but Melissa was persistent. Emails came next, then messages through their parents, and finally, a new phone number, each time with the same casual tone, each time without addressing the wedding-sized elephant in the room. And now, here was today's text. The third this week, asking about a cafe downtown as if they were still the close sisters they'd once been, as if nothing had changed at all. Laura had only met Jake 3 times before the engagement. The first meeting had been at Thanksgiving 2 years ago, when Melissa had brought him home to meet the family. He'd been perfectly polite, bringing an expensive bottle of wine and complimenting her mother's cooking. But something about him had set Laura's teeth on edge. Perhaps it was the way his hand always seemed to be on Melissa's lower back, steering her, or how he answered questions directed at Melissa, as if she couldn't speak for herself. Or maybe it was the tight smile that never reached his eyes when Melissa recounted childhood stories involving Laura. "Your sister seems nice," Laura had said carefully that night when she and Melissa were washing dishes after dinner. "He's great, isn't he?" Melissa had beamed. "I think he might be the one." Laura had nodded, swallowing her concerns. Who was she to judge after just one meeting? Their second encounter had been at a restaurant for Melissa's birthday. Jake had organized the dinner, inviting several of Melissa's college friends but accidentally sending Laura's invitation to an old email address. She'd only found out about it when their mother mentioned it in passing. "Sorry about the mix-up," Jake had said when Laura arrived, his tone suggesting it was more her fault than his. "We've already ordered appetizers." Throughout the evening, he'd dominated the conversation, repeatedly cutting Laura off mid-sentence. When she'd mentioned the vacation she and Melissa had been planning for years, Jake had laughed. "Melissa doesn't have time for girls' trips anymore," he'd said, squeezing Melissa's shoulders. "We're saving for a house, right babe?" Melissa had nodded, avoiding Laura's eyes. The third and final meeting before the engagement had been the most revealing. Laura had stopped by Melissa's apartment unannounced, bringing soup when she heard her sister was sick. She'd used her emergency key to let herself in when no one answered. she'd found Melissa in the bedroom, phone clutched to her chest, eyes red from crying. "What's wrong?" Laura had asked, rushing to her side. "Nothing, just a cold," Melissa had insisted, quickly wiping her eyes. "Jake's getting me medicine." Before Laura could press further, Jake had returned, his expression darkening when he saw her. "You should have called first," he'd said coldly. "She's my sister," Laura had replied. "I brought soup." "We don't need your soup," he'd snapped. "Melissa needs rest, not visitors." "Jake," Melissa had whispered, but she hadn't contradicted him. Laura had left the soup in the kitchen and departed, unsettled by the interaction. Later that night, she'd received a text from Melissa. "Sorry about today. Jake gets protective when I'm sick. He says thanks for the soup though." But Laura knew he hadn't said any such thing. After that, Melissa had started making excuses whenever Laura suggested getting together. She was busy with work. She and Jake had plans. She wasn't feeling well. The frequency of their calls dwindled. Their texts became visible. When they did speak, Jake was always there in the background, his presence a constant shadow over their conversations. Now, staring at the latest text from her sister, Laura wondered how much influence Jake had over the wedding decision. Had he been the one to suggest cutting Laura out? Had he convinced Melissa that her own sister didn't deserve to be part of her special day? Or was that just an easy excuse, a way to avoid admitting that Melissa had made this heartbreaking choice all on her own? After a week of Melissa's persistent texts, Laura decided she needed answers. If her sister wouldn't provide them, perhaps her parents would. She invited them over for dinner, carefully planning a meal that would foster conversation, her mother's favorite lasagna, a good bottle of wine, and her father's preferred apple pie for dessert. They arrived bearing a houseplant and awkward smiles. The initial conversation stuck to safe topics: work, the weather, her father's golf game. But as they settled in with their wine after dinner, Laura steered the conversation where she needed it to go. "I've been getting texts from Melissa," she said, watching their reactions carefully. Her parents exchanged that look again, the one that told her they knew more than they were saying. "That's nice," her mother offered cautiously. "Have you responded?" "No," Laura said firmly, "and I'm not going to until I understand what happened. I need you to tell me the truth. Why was I cut out of the wedding? What aren't you telling me?" Her father shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Pumpkin, it's complicated. I'm an adult. I can handle complicated." Her mother took a long sip of wine. "There was an incident before the wedding." "What kind of incident?" Laura pressed. "An argument," her father admitted. "A big one. Between Melissa and us." Laura blinked, in surprise. "You argued with Melissa? About what?" Her parents exchanged another glance. "About you." "Partly," her mother said quietly, "about how she was treating you." The revelation hit Laura like a physical blow. "You argued with her about me?" "When?" "About 2 months before the wedding," her father said. "We had gone to a cake tasting with them. You had just called me that morning, upset about being excluded from the bridal party. I couldn't stop thinking about how hurt you were." "Your father brought it up over dessert," her mother continued. "He asked Melissa why you weren't involved in the wedding planning." Things escalated quickly. Jake got very defensive. Her father added, his expression darkening. "Said some things about you that were completely untrue. Claimed you'd always been jealous of Melissa, that you tried to undermine their relationship." "What?" Laura gasped. "That's absurd. I barely know him." "We know, honey," her mother soothed. "We defended you, of course, but Melissa sided with Jake." She said. She said we always favored you growing up, and that we needed to respect her choices." The argument got heated, her father admitted. Words were said on both sides. "We left on bad terms. For 2 weeks, Melissa wouldn't take our calls," her mother said, tears welling in her eyes. "Finally, Jake called and said if we wanted to attend the wedding, we needed to apologize and agree not to mention you again. You agreed to that?" Laura whispered, incredulous. Her father looked down at his hands. "We didn't want to miss our daughter's wedding. We hoped she would come to her senses after some time had passed. We were wrong to agree to his terms," her mother admitted. "But we were scared of losing her completely." Laura sat back, trying to process this revelation. "So I was excluded because you defended me. And you've been keeping this from me all this time." "We didn't want to hurt you more than you'd already been hurt," her father said. "We thought it would be easier if you believed it was just about keeping the wedding party balanced," her mother added. "Easier," Laura repeated, her voice rising. Nothing about this has been easy. I've been torturing myself trying to figure out what I did wrong, why my own sister would cut me out of her life. We're sorry, honey, her mother said, reaching for her hand. We should have told you sooner. Laura pulled away, anger and betrayal coursing through her. Yes, you should have. The first text had arrived exactly 16 days after the wedding. Laura remembered because she'd been tracking the days in a strange, detached way. 2 weeks and 2 days of complete silence from her sister, followed by a casual message as if nothing had happened. Hey sis, back from the honeymoon. Want to grab coffee this weekend? XOML. Laura had been sitting at her kitchen table, mechanically eating cereal she couldn't taste, when the text arrived. She'd nearly dropped her spoon into the bowl when she saw Melissa's name on the screen. Her first reaction had been shock, followed quickly by anger so intense her hands shook. The audacity of it, no acknowledgement, no apology, just a breezy invitation to coffee, as if they were still the close sisters they'd always been. As if Laura hadn't spent the wedding day alone in her apartment, drinking wine and crying while scrolling through photos of strangers celebrating with her sister. She'd deleted the message immediately, then blocked the number. 3 days later, an email had arrived. Laura, didn't hear back from you. My number is new number now. Let me know when you're free. Miss you. Mel. Laura had blocked that email address and the new phone number. Next came messages. Through their parents, Melissa asked us to tell you she's been trying to reach you. Laura had asked them not to pass along any more messages. Then a handwritten card arrived in her mailbox. I know you're getting my messages. Please don't shut me out. Love always, your sister. Laura had torn it into tiny pieces. Each attempt at contact had made Laura's anger burn hotter. How dare Melissa act like the victim? How dare she pretend everything was normal? The complete lack of acknowledgement that anything was wrong felt more painful than the original exclusion. But as weeks passed, a sliver of curiosity began to work its way through Laura's defenses. What was Melissa's game? Why this persistent pretense of normalcy? Was it guilt, delusion, some bizarre form of gaslighting? When the third new phone number appeared with a text almost identical to the others, hey, haven't heard from you in ages. Free for lunch next week. Laura had hesitated before blocking it. What would happen if she responded? Would Melissa finally explain herself? Apologize? Or would she continue this strange charade? Against her better judgment, Laura had typed a neutral reply. I'm busy next week. The response had come almost immediately. No problem. How about the following weekend? So much to catch up on. No mention of the wedding. No acknowledgement of the months of silence. No hint that anything was amiss in their relationship. Laura hadn't replied to that message, but she hadn't blocked the number either. Instead, she'd found herself in a bizarre, one-sided conversation, receiving cheerful, casual texts from Melissa every few days. Each one acting as if their relationship was perfectly intact. Saw a shirt that would look amazing on you today. Remember that restaurant we went to last summer? Jake and I had dinner there last night. Food's still great. Mom says you got a promotion. Congrats, sis. We should celebrate. Each message was like a paper cut small but painful, a reminder of what they'd lost, or rather, what Melissa had thrown away, and now seemed determined to pretend still existed. And now, this latest text about the downtown cafe, the third this week, each one chipping away at Laura's resolve, making her wonder if she should finally respond, demand answers, or simply continue the silent treatment that was clearly not working. She stared at her phone, thumb hovering over the screen. What would happen if she agreed to meet? Would Melissa finally acknowledge what she'd done, or would she maintain this facade of normalcy, gaslighting Laura into believing nothing had ever happened? Only one way to find out, that before committing to meeting Melissa, Laura decided to gather more information. There was one person who might have insights that her parents didn't. Ashley, Melissa's closest friend since college. Ashley had been at the wedding. Laura had seen her in the photos, but unlike the other bridesmaids, Ashley had known both sisters for years. They met at a quiet corner table in a coffee shop far from Melissa and Jake's neighborhood. Ashley arrived looking nervous, her eyes darting around as if expecting to be caught in the act of something illicit. Thanks for meeting me, Laura said as Ashley slid into the seat across from her. I know this is awkward. Ashley nodded, wrapping her hands around her coffee mug. I almost didn't come. Jake checks Melissa's phone sometimes, and he doesn't like her friends talking to you. Laura felt a chill run through her. He checks her phone. Ashley bit her lip. I probably shouldn't have said that. What else shouldn't you say, Ashley? What's really going on with my sister? Ashley sighed, her shoulders slumping. It's complicated, Laura. Jake, he has very specific ideas about who should be in their lives. And I didn't make the cut, Laura asked, trying to keep the bitterness from her voice. It wasn't like that, not at first, Ashley said. In the beginning, he just made little comments about how you were too critical or how you never approved of him. That's not true. I barely knew him. I know that, Ashley assured her. But Melissa. She started to believe him, especially after he showed her the texts. Laura frowned. What texts? Ashley shifted uncomfortably. He claimed you sent him messages saying he wasn't good enough for Melissa, that you'd always protect her from guys like him. I never sent any such texts. I didn't even have his number. I figured as much, Ashley said quietly, but Melissa saw something on his phone, screenshots that looked real enough. Laura felt sick. He faked texts from me. Ashley shrugged helplessly. I can't prove anything. But the Laura I know wouldn't have written those things. Did you tell Melissa that I tried? But by then, Jake had convinced her that everyone who questioned him was trying to sabotage their relationship. She said I was jealous because I was single. Ashley's voice cracked slightly. I almost wasn't included in the wedding either, until I apologized to Jake. Apologized for what? For suggesting that he was isolating Melissa from the people who cared about her. Ashley looked down at her coffee. It wasn't just you, Laura. She's barely in contact with most of her old friends. Even her relationship with your parents is strained. Laura thought about the argument her parents had described. But now she's texting me like nothing happened. Why the sudden change? Ashley hesitated. After the wedding, I overheard Jake telling her to reach out to you. Said it would look bad if she completely cut off her only sister. Look bad to whom? His family, I think. They're very image conscious. All about appearances. Ashley checked her watch nervously. I should go. I told Melissa I was at a dentist appointment. One last question, Laura said as Ashley stood to leave. Is my sister happy? Ashley paused, her expression troubled. She says she is, BAFTA. But the Melissa I knew used to laugh all the time. I haven't heard her really laugh in months. After Ashley left, Laura sat alone, trying to process this new information. Jake had deliberately turned Melissa against her, using fake evidence to drive a wedge between them, and now he wanted Melissa to pretend everything was fine, not for Laura's sake, but for appearances. The revelation made the weekly texts even more painful. They weren't genuine attempts to reconnect. They were performances orchestrated by Jake, with Melissa as his willing puppet. The texts continued with clockwork regularity. Every Monday and Thursday, like someone checking a task off a to-do list, Melissa would reach out with mundane questions or observations. Beautiful weather today. Remember when we used to go hiking in spring? Just tried that pasta recipe Mom gave us. Still can't cook as well as you. Thinking of repainting the living room. What color would you choose? Each message landed like a slap. If Ashley was right, these weren't genuine attempts to reconnect but performances for Jake's benefit. Maybe he was even dictating them, making sure Melissa maintained the appearance of a normal sibling relationship while ensuring they never actually met. Laura began to notice a pattern. The texts always came during business hours, never evenings or weekends when Jake would presumably be home. They never included invitations with specific dates or times, just vague suggestions, sometime, soon, when you're free. And Melissa never followed up if Laura didn't respond. It was as if the messages existed only to be sent, not to receive replies. Digital breadcrumbs creating the illusion of effort. Unsure how to proceed, Laura made an appointment with her therapist, Dr. Chen. She hadn't seen him since before the wedding, when she'd been struggling with anxiety about Melissa's strange behavior. I don't know what to do, she admitted, after bringing him up to speed. Part of me wants to confront her, demand answers. Another part wants to keep ignoring her, and a small, stupid part of me wants to pretend everything's normal, just to have my sister back. Dr. Chen nodded thoughtfully. Those are all understandable reactions. What's holding you back from each option? Laura considered this. If I confront her, I might push her further away, and if Jake is controlling her the way Ashley suggests, a confrontation could make things worse for Melissa. And if you continue ignoring her, then nothing changes. She keeps sending these meaningless texts. I keep feeling hurt, and we both pretend this bizarre situation is normal. And if you pretended everything was fine, Laura shook her head firmly. I can't do that. It would be dishonest, and it wouldn't address the real problems. Plus, it would mean letting Jake win, letting him control our relationship too. Dr. Chen smiled slightly. It sounds like you already know what you need to do. I need to talk to her, Laura realized. Really talk to her. Not over text where Jake might be monitoring, but face to face. That seems like a reasonable next step, Dr. Chen agreed. But I want you to consider what outcome you're hoping for, and whether it's realistic. Laura thought about this for a moment. I want an explanation. An apology would be nice, but mostly I just want to understand what happened. And, I want to make sure she's okay. Those are fair goals, Dr. Chen said. But remember, you can't control how Melissa will respond. She might not be ready or able to give you what you need. I know, Laura said softly, but I have to try, don't I? She's my sister. That evening, when the latest text arrived, hey, thinking of trying that new cafe downtown this weekend. Want to join, Monsieur? Laura finally responded, yes, Saturday, at 11, I'll meet you there. The reply came almost immediately. Great, see you then. The heart emoji felt like a knife twist. How could Melissa act so casual, so affectionate, after everything that had happened? Laura took a deep breath, reminding herself of Dr. Chen's words. She couldn't control Melissa's response, she could only control her own actions. Saturday would bring answers. One way or another. Laura arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early, choosing a table in the back corner where they could speak privately. Her stomach churned with anxiety as she ordered a black coffee she doubted she'd be able to drink. Melissa walked in at 11:05, scanning the room until she spotted Laura. She looked thinner than in her wedding photos, her face slightly drawn despite the bright smile she flashed. She wore a cream-colored sweater and jeans casual, but Laura recognized the designer brand Jake preferred. Laura, Melissa exclaimed, approaching with arms outstretched as if for a hug. Laura remained seated, and, after an awkward moment, Melissa's arms dropped. She slid into the opposite chair, still smiling, though the expression now seemed strained. It's so good to see you, Melissa said. I've missed you. Laura studied her sister's face, searching for signs of the genuine warmth they'd once shared. Have you? Melissa blinked, her smile faltering slightly. Of course I have. You're my sister, am I? Because for the past 6 months, it hasn't felt that way. I know we haven't seen much of each other lately, Melissa began, her tone placating. We've both been busy. Stop, Laura interrupted. Stop. I wasn't busy, Melissa. I was excluded. Cut out. Erased from your wedding and your life. Melissa's smile disappeared completely. She glanced around nervously, as if worried someone might overhear. That's not fair. You could have come to the wedding. Mom and Dad, as their +1. After being your planned maid of honor since we were children. Things change, Laura. People grow up, make different choices. This wasn't a different choice. This was a complete betrayal of our relationship. Laura leaned forward, lowering her voice. I want to know why. What did I do that was so terrible you couldn't even have me in your wedding party? Melissa shifted uncomfortably. It wasn't personal. We just wanted balance. Jake's sister was maid of honor. His brothers were groomsmen. It made sense. That's bullshit and you know it, Laura said, her voice shaking slightly. Try again. Look, I don't know what you want me to say, Melissa replied, a defensive edge creeping into her tone. It was my wedding, my choice. Was it, or was it Jake's? Melissa's eyes narrowed. Don't bring Jake into this. He's been nothing but supportive, really, because I heard he showed you text messages I supposedly sent him. Messages saying he wasn't good enough for you. A flicker of surprise crossed Melissa's face before her expression hardened. You did send those texts. I saw them with my own eyes. I never had his number, Mel. Never sent him a single message. He faked those texts to turn you against me. That's ridiculous, Melissa scoffed. But Laura caught the moment of uncertainty in her eyes. Why would he do that? Because that's what controlling partners do. They isolate you from the people who care about you, who might see what's happening. Jake isn't controlling, Melissa insisted, though her voice lacked conviction. He's protective. Is that why he checks your phone? Why you only text me during business hours when he's not around? Melissa's face paled. Who told you that? Was it Ashley? She's always been jealous of my relationship. This isn't about Ashley. This is about you and me, and why you cut me out of your life. Laura reached across the table, trying to take her sister's hand, but Melissa pulled away. Mel, I'm worried about you. This isn't like you, shutting out family, pushing away friends. You don't know anything about my life now, Melissa snapped, her cheeks flushing. I'm happy. Jake and I are happy. If you can't accept that, then maybe it's better we don't see each other. I want you to be happy, Laura said softly, but I don't think you are. The sister I knew wouldn't have thrown away our relationship over fake text messages. She wouldn't be sending weekly check-in texts like they're items on a to-do list. Melissa stood abruptly, grabbing her purse. I shouldn't have come. This was a mistake. Mel, please, no, I'm done. You clearly just wanted to attack Jake, not reconnect with me. I was trying to be nice, to include you in my life again, but you're making it impossible. Laura called her parents immediately after Melissa stormed out of the cafe. Her hands were still shaking as she recounted the disastrous meeting. She wouldn't listen to anything I said, Laura told them. She just defended Jake and accused me of attacking him. I don't know what to do. Her father's voice was grim. This has gone on long enough. Come over for dinner tonight. Your mother and I will invite Melissa to. She won't come if she knows I'll be there. Leave that to us, her mother said firmly. That evening, Laura arrived at her parents' house early. Her mother was putting the finishing touches on Melissa's favorite meal, pot roast with roasted potatoes and her grandmother's famous dinner rolls. Her father was setting the table, his movements precise and deliberate in the way they always were when he was tense. Are you sure this is a good idea? Laura asked, watching them prepare for a dinner that could easily devolve into another argument. No, her father admitted, but doing nothing isn't working either. The doorbell rang at exactly 6:30. Laura retreated to the kitchen as her mother went to answer it. She heard Melissa's voice, then Jake's. Her stomach dropped. They hadn't mentioned Jake would be coming to. What a lovely surprise, her mother was saying, her voice artificially bright. I didn't realize you'd be joining us, Jake. Melissa mentioned you were making pot roast. Jake replied smoothly. I couldn't miss that. Footsteps approached the kitchen. Laura took a deep breath, steeling herself for the confrontation. Melissa appeared in the doorway first, freezing when she saw Laura. What is she doing here? Jake appeared behind her, his expression darkening. You said this was just dinner with your parents. It is a family dinner, their father said firmly, entering from the dining room. Last I checked, that includes both my daughters. We're leaving, Jake announced, putting his hand on Melissa's back. No, their mother said, moving to block the doorway. We are going to sit down as a family and talk about this situation like adults. Jake's face flushed with anger. This is a setup. Melissa doesn't need to subject herself to more attacks from her sister. Jake, their father said, his voice dangerously calm, this is between our daughters. You are welcome to stay for dinner, but this conversation needs to happen. For a moment, tension crackled in the air. Then, surprisingly, Melissa spoke up. He's right, Jake. I need to talk to my family. Jake's eyes widened in surprise. Babe, after what happened this morning, No, Melissa said quietly, but they're still my family. Jake's jaw clenched, but he nodded stiffly. Fine, but I'm staying. The dinner began in uncomfortable silence. Their mother served the food while their father attempted small talk about the weather and his golf game. Laura kept her eyes on her plate, afraid that looking at Melissa or Jake might ignite the tension simmering beneath the surface. Finally, their father cleared his throat. We need to address what's been happening. This family is being torn apart, and it needs to stop. I agree, Jake said immediately. Laura needs to stop interfering in our marriage and respect Melissa's choices. That's not what's happening here, Laura's mother said firmly. What's happening is that my daughters, who were best friends their entire lives, are suddenly estranged because of lies and manipulation. Mom, Melissa protested. I'm sorry, honey, but it's true, her mother continued. Jake told you Laura sent him messages disparaging him. Laura says she never had his number. One of them is lying. And you automatically believe her, Melissa said bitterly. I believe the daughter I raised, their father interjected. The one who has never given us reason to doubt her word. Jake's face had gone pale, a muscle twitching in his jaw. This is exactly what we expected. Your family has always favored Laura over you, Melissa. This just proves it. The family dinner had ended with Melissa in tears and Jake practically dragging her out the door, muttering about toxic family dynamics and always taking Laura's side. No resolution had been reached, and Laura felt worse than ever. A week passed with no contact from Melissa. No texts, no calls, nothing. Laura worried that the confrontation had pushed her sister further away instead of bringing her closer. Then, on a rainy Tuesday evening, fate intervened. Laura was having dinner, alone, at a small Italian restaurant when she spotted a familiar figure at the bar. Jake, hunched over a whiskey, his attention fixed on his phone. Melissa was nowhere in sight. Laura's first instinct was to leave before he noticed her, but a surge of protective anger kept her rooted to her seat. This man had destroyed her relationship with her sister through lies and manipulation. She couldn't just walk away. Taking a deep breath, she approached the bar, sliding onto the stool beside him. "Hello, Jake?" He looked up, surprise flickering across his face before his expression hardened. "Laura, are you following me now? Believe me, running into you is the last thing I wanted tonight." She signaled the bartender for a glass of wine. "Where's Melissa?" "Book club," he said curtly. "Not that it's any of your business." Laura couldn't help herself. "Do you check her phone before or after book club?" Jake's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You should be careful about making accusations you can't back up, like fake text messages from me." Laura held his gaze steadily. "I know what you did, Jake. What I don't understand is why. I don't know what Ashley told you. This isn't about Ashley. It's about you systematically isolating my sister from everyone who cares about her." Laura leaned closer, lowering her voice. "I want to see those texts I supposedly sent you." A flicker of panic crossed his face before he composed himself. "I deleted them. They were upsetting Melissa." "How convenient. You know, it would be easy to prove if they were real. Phone records show every number that contacts you." Jake's expression darkened. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm stating a fact. Those texts don't exist because I never sent them. You made them up to turn Melissa against me." Jake downed the rest of his whiskey and slammed the glass on the bar. "Stay away from my wife. She's finally free from your shadow, and she's happier for it." "Is she?" "Because she looks miserable in every photo I've seen since you married her." "You don't know anything about our life," Jake hissed, grabbing his phone from the bar. As he did, Laura caught a glimpse of the screen a text conversation with someone named Dave discussing an upcoming poker game. In that moment, an idea struck her. "Show me your phone, Jake." "What?" "No. If you have nothing to hide, show me your phone. Prove you're not lying about the texts. I don't have to prove anything to you." He stood abruptly, throwing cash on the bar. "This conversation is over." Laura grabbed his arm. "Does Melissa know you're not really working late on Thursdays? That you're playing poker instead?" Jake froze, his expression confirming her guess had hit home. Then his face contorted with rage. He jerked his arm free and leaned close, his voice a menacing whisper. "Listen carefully. Stay away from Melissa. Stay away from me. If you try to interfere in our marriage again, you'll regret it." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm promising you. Push this any further, and I'll make sure Melissa never speaks to any of you again." His eyes were cold, calculating. "I've gotten her to cut you out once. Don't think I can't do it permanently." With that, he stormed out of the restaurant, leaving Laura shaken but more determined than ever. This wasn't just about mending her relationship with Melissa anymore. It was about protecting her sister from a man who had just revealed exactly who he was, a manipulative, controlling liar who would stop at nothing to maintain his power. The question was, how could she prove it to Melissa? Laura couldn't sleep that night, Jake's threat echoing in her mind. She'd seen the cold calculation in his eyes, the absolute certainty that he could control Melissa completely. It terrified her. By morning, she knew what she had to do. Direct confrontation hadn't worked. It had only pushed Melissa further away and alerted Jake to her concerns. She needed a different approach, one that would bypass Jake's influence and speak directly to the sister she'd known all her life. Laura called in sick to work and spent the day gathering evidence. She dug through old photo albums, findings from their childhood, building sandcastles at the beach, dressed in matching Halloween costumes, blowing out birthday candles together. She found the scrapbook they'd created for their future weddings, with magazine cutouts and handwritten notes about their dreams. She downloaded years of text messages between them, conversations full of inside jokes, mutual support, and the easy affection of sisters who trusted each other completely. She found emails dating back to college, voice messages saved on her old phone, birthday cards Melissa had given her over the years. Each artifact told the story of their relationship, honest, loving, supportive, not the toxic dynamic Jake had painted. Laura organized everything chronologically, creating a digital timeline of their sisterhood. At the end, she added the wedding invitation, addressed only to their parents, and screenshots of Melissa's texts afterward, acting as if nothing had happened. The contrast was stark and heartbreaking. For the final touch, she wrote Melissa a letter. Mel, I'm not writing to accuse or blame. I just want you to remember who we were before Jake came into our lives. These photos, messages, and memories tell the story of two sisters who promised to always be there for each other. I never sent Jake any messages about him. I never had his number. I never tried to sabotage your relationship. I only ever wanted your happiness. Something changed in the months before your wedding. Someone convinced you that I was your enemy instead of the sister who has loved you unconditionally since the day you were born. I miss you, not the person sending mechanical weekly texts, but my real sister. The one who called me first with every piece of good news. The one who knew all my secrets and kept them. The one who promised to be my maid of honor someday, just as I promised to be yours. If that sister is still there, please call me. No matter what's happened, I still love you and I always will. Larashi transferred everything to a USB drive, slipping it and the letter into an envelope. Then came the hard part, getting it to Melissa, without Jake intercepting it. Laura drove to Melissa's workplace. Timing her arrival for the lunch hour, she spotted her sister walking alone toward a nearby cafe and hurried to catch up. Melissa turned, her expression guarded, when she saw Laura. What are you doing here? I need to give you something, Laura said quickly, holding out the envelope. Please, just take it. Look at it when you're alone. Melissa hesitated, glancing around as if worried Jake might materialize. I can't do this right now. You don't have to do anything right now except take this, Laura insisted. Read it, or don't, that's your choice. But please, just take it. After what felt like an eternity, Melissa reached out and took the envelope, slipping it quickly into her purse. I have to go. Thank you, Laura said softly. That's all I'm asking. As Melissa walked away, Laura felt a glimmer of hope. The envelope was in her sister's hands. Now all she could do was wait and pray that somewhere beneath Jake's influence, the real Melissa was still there, waiting to be reached. 3 days passed, with no word from Melissa. Laura jumped every time her phone buzzed, but it was never her sister. By the third evening, she had resigned herself to the possibility that her last attempt had failed. She was curled up on her couch in pajamas, mindlessly watching a cooking show, when her doorbell rang. Frowning, she checked the time: 9:37 p.m. Too late for deliveries or casual visitors. Through the peephole, she saw Melissa standing in the hallway, hugging herself as if cold despite the warm evening. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her face pale and drawn. Laura yanked the door open. Mel, without a word, Melissa collapsed into her arms, her body shaking with silent sobs. Laura guided her inside and to the couch, holding her as she cried. I'm sorry, Melissa finally managed between sobs. I'm so sorry. It's okay, Laura soothed, stroking her sister's hair. Everything's going to be okay. No, it's not. Melissa pulled back, wiping her face with her sleeve. Nothing's okay. I've ruined everything. You haven't ruined anything that can't be fixed, Laura assured her, reaching for a box of tissues. Melissa took one gratefully. I watched everything on the USB drive. All the photos, the messages. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I'd forgotten so much of it. Or maybe I made myself forget. What do you mean, Jake? Melissa's voice broke on his name. He's been telling me for years that you were jealous of me, that you resented our relationship. At first, I didn't believe him, but he was so convinced, so persuasive. And then the texts, Laura prompted gently. Melissa nodded miserably. He showed me messages from your number, saying terrible things about him, about how he wasn't good enough for me. I was so hurt, so angry that you'd go behind my back like that. But I never sent those messages. Mel, I know that now. Melissa whispered, after I got your envelope, I checked our cell phone records online. There were never any texts from your number to his, not one. Laura felt a surge of vindication, quickly followed by concern for her sister. Where does Jake think you are right now? Working late. He's out of town until tomorrow. Business trip. Melissa's eyes darted nervously to the window. I don't have much time. I had to see you, to tell you I know the truth now. About the texts. About everything. Melissa's voice strengthened slightly. Once I realized he'd lied about the texts, I started seeing other patterns. How he checks my phone. How he criticizes my friends until I stop seeing them. How he talks about you and Mom and Dad. Oh, Mel. Laura took her sister's hands. I've been so worried about you. I've been miserable, Melissa admitted, her voice barely audible. The wedding, cutting you out, it was all his idea. He said if I really loved him, I'd make his sister maid of honor instead of you, that it would prove my loyalty. She looked away in shame. I knew it was wrong, but by then, I was so confused about what was real. He had me convinced that you and our parents were trying to control me, that only he really cared about my happiness. And the texts afterward, the ones pretending nothing had happened. His idea too. He said we needed to maintain appearances, that cutting off family completely would look bad. He reads all my messages to you, tells me what to write. Melissa's breathing hitched. I've been living like this for 3 years, Laura. I don't know who I am anymore. You're my sister, Laura said firmly, and we're going to figure this out together. Once Melissa started talking, the whole story poured out of her. It was worse than Laura had imagined. It happened so gradually, I barely noticed, Melissa explained, clutching a mug of tea Laura had made. At first, he just made little comments about you, how you were too busy with your career to make time for me, how you never seemed enthusiastic about our relationship. I was cautious about him, Laura admitted, but only because something felt off. I barely knew him. That's what he used against you. He said you were judging him without giving him a chance. Melissa's hands trembled slightly. Then he started, with Mom and Dad, said they always favored you, gave you more attention, more support. That's not true. I know that now. But Jake would point out every little interaction, twist it to fit his narrative, like when Dad helped you move apartments but couldn't help us because of his back surgery. Jake said Dad was faking the pain to avoid helping him. Laura felt sick. That's horrible. Dad was in physical therapy for months after that surgery. Looking back, I can see how ridiculous it was. But Jake has this way of making insane things sound reasonable. Melissa took a shaky breath. By the time we got engaged, he had me convinced that my family was toxic, that only he truly cared about me. Is that when he faked the texts? Melissa nodded. He said he didn't want to show me because it would hurt me, but I deserved to know the truth about you. The messages called him controlling and said I deserved better. They warned him to treat me right or else. That's absurd, Laura said. I would never send threatening messages to anyone. I know, but by then, I was already deep under his influence. When he suggested making Amber maid of honor instead of you, I protested at first, but he wore me down, said it would be a fresh start without family drama. And our parents, he convinced me they were trying to control the wedding, that they sided with you against us. When they confronted him about excluding you, Melissa's voice faltered. He was furious afterward, said they'd disrespected him in his own home, that they clearly didn't want him in the family. So you cut them off too. Not completely. Jake said that would look bad. Instead, we limited contact, kept conversations superficial. The same script he gave me for texting you. Laura leaned forward. Mel, has he ever hurt you physically? No, Melissa said quickly. It's never been like that. It's all psychologically making me doubt myself, isolating me from support, controlling who I talk to and when. She looked down at her tea. Sometimes I think physical abuse would have been easier to recognize. What made you finally see through it? Your USB drive, Melissa said softly. Seeing our whole history laid out like that, ... It broke through something. The sister in those photos and messages wouldn't have sent threatening texts. She wouldn't have tried to sabotage my happiness. No, she wouldn't, Laura agreed. She only ever wanted the best for you. After I checked the phone records and confirmed the texts were fake, I started looking for other lies. I found them everywhere. Melissa's expression hardened. He's been having an affair with his assistant for at least 6 months. I found hotel receipts, messages, all while controlling my every move, every conversation. Oh, Mel, I'm so sorry. Don't be. It's clarifying, in a way. Melissa straightened her shoulders slightly. I've been living in a fog for 3 years. Now, I can finally see clearly. What are you going to do? Leave him, Melissa said simply. Tonight, while he's still out of town, I've already packed a baggage in my car downstairs. Laura reached for her sister's hand. You can stay here as long as you need. We'll figure out the rest together. For the first time that evening, Melissa smiled, a small, tremulous thing, but genuine. I was hoping you'd say that. 3 months later, Laura's apartment had transformed from a single-woman space to a sisterly sanctuary. Melissa's clothes hung in half the closet, her books filled an empty shelf, and her favorite coffee mug had a permanent spot on the kitchen counter. The transition hadn't been easy. Jake had reacted to Melissa's departure with a volatile mixture of rage and manipulation. First came the threatening texts, then the tearful apologies, then the vicious accusations. He'd shown up at Laura's apartment twice, pounding on the door and shouting, until neighbors called the police. Melissa had gotten a restraining order after the second incident. The legal process had been draining, but necessary. The divorce proceedings were ongoing, messy and contentious, but Melissa remained firm in her decision. Some days are harder than others, Melissa admitted as she and Laura prepared dinner together on a Sunday evening. Their parents were coming over, a weekly tradition they'd established to rebuild their family bonds. I still catch myself thinking in his patterns sometimes, wondering if I'm allowed to do something, worrying what he'll think. That's normal, Laura assured her, chopping vegetables for the salad. Dr. Chun says those thought patterns take time to unlearn. Melissa had started seeing Laura's therapist soon after moving in. The sessions were helping her recognize and dismantle the web of manipulation Jake had woven around her mind. I'm just grateful you didn't give up on me, Melissa said, pausing in her pasta stirring to look at her sister. Even when I shut you out completely. Laura smiled. Sisters don't give up on each other. Not really. The doorbell rang, announcing their parents' arrival. Their father carried a bottle of wine, their mother a homemade apple pie. These family dinners had become healing rituals, spaces where painful truths could be spoken and old wounds addressed. My girls, their mother said warmly, embracing each of them. Something smells wonderful. Melissa's making her famous pesto. Pasta, Laura said, and I'm contributing a salad, since that's about the limit of my culinary skills. Their father chuckled. Some things never change. As they settled around the table, the conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and comfortable silences. There was no tension, no walking on eggshells, just a family rebuilding its foundations. I have some news, Melissa announced as they were finishing the main course. I signed a lease today, for an apartment of my own. Laura felt a small pang at the thought of Melissa leaving, though she'd known this day would come. That's wonderful. Mel, where is it? 2 floors down, Melissa said with a grin. Apartment 512 opened up last week. I'll be moving in next month. You're staying in the building. Laura couldn't hide her delight. I'm not ready to be too far from my support system yet, Melissa admitted. Plus, this way we can still have sister movie nights without either of us having to go far. Their mother raised her wine glass. To new beginnings, and to family, real kind, that stands by you no matter what. And 2 sisters, their father added with a warm smile. Together again, as it should be. As they clinked glasses, Laura caught Melissa's eye across the table. In that moment of connection, she saw the sister she'd grown up with, strong, loving, authentic, emerging once more from the shadow Jake had cast over her. Later, after their parents had left and the dishes were done, the sisters sat together on Laura's small balcony, watching the city lights twinkle against the darkening sky. Remember when we were kids, Melissa said softly, and we promised to live next door to each other when we grew up. Laura nodded, and to be each other's maids of honor. I broke those promises. Melissa's voice was tinged with regret. We have new ones now, Laura reassured her, and plenty of time to keep them. Melissa reached over and squeezed her sister's hand. I was thinking, when you get married someday, I want to be your maid of honor, if you'll still have me. There's no one else I'd want, Laura said firmly. It's always been you, and maybe someday, years from now, when I'm ready to try again with someone who truly loves me. Melissa's voice wavered slightly. Maybe you'll stand beside me too. Try and stop me, Laura replied, squeezing her sister's hand in return. That's a promise I intend to keep. As they sat together in comfortable silence, Laura reflected on the painful journey that had brought them to this moment of healing. The wedding that had torn them apart seemed distant now, like a bad dream fading in the light of morning. What remained was what had always been there beneath the pain and confusion. To sisters, bound by blood and choice, weathering life's storms together. Some bonds, Laura realized, were simply unbreakable. Even when severely tested, they could be mended, strengthened, renewed. Their story wasn't about a wedding missed or an invitation denied. It was about finding their way back to each other, about choosing love over pride, truth over comfort, and family over everything else that was worth celebrating, far more than any wedding could ever be.